Lo, as a babe, Yeshua was taken by his parents into Egypt, weaned until age 2 under the close watch of his mother. At age 3, he started to study alphabets and their meanings under an Egyptian teacher. At age 4 years, 4 months and 4 days, he was given over to Joseph, who taught him the rudiments of carpentry up to age 5. At the 6th year, they returned back to Jerusalem, for they heard of the death of Herod. By age 7, studying with the Essenes, of which Joseph was a member. He memorized all the Hebraic text and returned to Nazareth because it was now safe for him and his family to return there. At age 11, Yeshua was brought to the council of Sanhedrin. Hillel, who was also one of Mary's teachers, was so interested with the youngster that he personally educated Yeshua for the next year. Their mutual admiration for one another grew quite quickly, and they were almost inseparable companions. Many of the knottiest points of the law which would perplex the Sanhedrin, the child could clearly explain to Hillel through the logic of love and justice. At age 12, he returned to Jerusalem from Egypt for the feast of Passover. When the Passover feast was over and Yeshua's family were on their way back to Galilee, they realized that Yeshua was not with their company. Thus they returned to Jerusalem on finding him in the temple with the elders, learning and teaching, discussing many things which surprised the elders. He was asked about his behavior, and he rejected them as his parents. With the statement, "I must be about my father's work," Hillel delayed his return for another day in order to show him off to the elders, who had come from the outlying reaches of the Holy Land for the celebration in Jerusalem. But after much tears from Mary, Yeshua decided to return with her home. At age 13, this is the age Yeshua, a Messiah, received his bar mitzvah. This is the age all boys reached manhood. At age 14, Yeshua journeyed to India, being a man after age 13. Between the ages of 15 and 19, Yeshua studied amongst the Brahma masters and common people. They referred to him as Hare Krishna. This title was carried back to Jerusalem and became Helios Christos, meaning the Anointed Son. In time, this became simply Christ. Between the ages of 20 and 25, Yeshua journeyed up the Tigris-Euphrates, going through Afghanistan and Chaldea. First, he went to India, amongst the Hindu. Benares is the sacred city of the Brahms, and the Benares Yeshua taught. Udraka was his host. Udraka made a feast in honor of his guests, and many high-born Hindu priests and scribes were there. And Yeshua said to them with much delight, "I speak to you concerning life, the brotherhood of life. The universal Alyun, Alyun El is one, yet he is more than one, all things are one. By the sweet breath of Alyun, Alyun El, all life is bound as one. So if you touch a fiber of a living thing, you send a thrill from center to the outer bounds of life. And when you crush beneath your foot the meanest worm, you shake the throne of Alyun, Alyun El, and cause the sword of life to tremble in his sheath. The bird sings out its song for Enosites, and Enosites vibrate in unison to help it sing. The ant constructs its home, the bee its sheltering comb, the spider weaves her web, and flowers breathe to them a spirit in their sweet perfume that gives them strength to toil. Now Enosites and birds and beasts and creeping things are deities, made flesh, and how dare you kill anything? It is cruelty that makes the world awry. When Enosites have learned that when they harm a living thing, they harm themselves, they surely will not kill, nor cause a thing that Alyun El has made to suffer pain. A lawyer said, "I pray to Yeshua, tell, who is this Alyun El you speak about? Where are his priests, his temples, and his shrines?" And Yeshua said, "The Most High that I speak about is everywhere. He cannot be compassed with walls, nor hedged about with bounds of any kind. All people worship the Most High, the One, but all the people see him not alike. This universal Alyun El is wisdom, will, and love. All Enosites see not the triune Most High. One sees him as the Most High of might, another as the Most High of thought, another as the Most High of love. An Enosite's ideal is his Alyun El. And so, as Enosites unfolds, his Alyun El unfolds, and Enosites Alyun El. Today, tomorrow is not the Most High. The nations of the earth see Alyun El from different points of view, and so he does not seem the same to everyone. Enosites names the part of Alyun El he sees, and this to him is all of the Most Highs, and every nation a name for Alyun El. You Brahmins call him Parabrahm, and Zeus is his name in Greece, Ur is his Hebrew name, but everywhere his is the causeless cause, the rootless root from which all things have grown. When Enosites are afraid of Alyun El and take him for a foe, they dress up other Enosites in fancy garbs and call them priests, and charge them to restrain the wrath of Alyun El by prayers, and when they fail to win his favor by their prayers, to buy him off with sacrifice of animals or birds. When Enosites sees Alyun El as one with him, as father Alyun El, he needs no middle Enosites, no priest to intercede. He goes straight up to him and say, "My father Alyun El," and then he lays his hands in Alyun El own hand, and all is well. And this is Alyun El, you are each one a priest just for yourself, and sacrifice of blood Alyun El does not want. Just give your life in sacrificial service to the all of life, and Alyun El is pleased. When Yashua had thus said, he stood aside. The people were amazed, but strove among themselves. Some said he is inspired by holy Brahm, and others said he is insane, and others said he is obsessed, he speaks as devils speak. But Yashua tarried not. Among the guests was one, a tiller of the soil, a generous soul, a seeker after truth, who loved the word that Yashua spoke. And Yashua went with him, and in his home abode. Then he travelled on into Tibet, amongst the Buddhists. Among the Buddhist priests was one who saw a lofty wisdom in the words that Yashua spoke. It was Bharata Arabo. Together Yashua and Bharata read the Psalms and Prophets and the Vedas, the Avesta and the wisdom of Gautama. And as they read and talked about the possibilities of man, Bharata said, "Man is the marvel of the universe. He is part of everything, for he has been a living thing on every plane of life. Time was when man was not, and then he was a bit of formless substance in the moods of time, and then a protoplast. By universal law, all things tend upward to a state of perfectness. The protoplast evolved, becoming worm, then reptile, bird and beast, and then at last it reached the form of man. Now man himself is mind, and mind is here to gain perfection by experience, and mind is often manifest in fleshly form, and in the form best suited to its growth. So mind may manifest as worm or bird or beast or man. The time will come when everything of life will be evolved unto the state of perfect man. And after man is perfectness, he will evolve to higher forms of life." And Yeshua said, "Bharata Arabo, who told you this, that mind, which is man, may manifest in flesh of beast or bird or creeping thing?" Bharata said, "From time which man remembers, not our priests have told us so, and we know." And Yeshua said, "Enlightened Arabo, are you a mastermind, and do not know that man knows naught by being told? Man may believe what others say, but he never knows. If man would know, he must himself be what he knows. Do you remember, Arabo, when you were ape, or bird, or worm? Now if you have no better proving of your plea than that the priests have told you so, you do not know, you simply guess. Regard not then what any man has said, let us forget the flesh, and go with mind into the land of fleshless things. Mind never does forget. And backward through the ages masterminds can trace themselves, and thus they know. Time never was when man was not. That which begins will have an end. If man was not, the time will come when he will not exist." From Alyun El's own record book we read, "The triune Alyun El breathed forth and stood 7 spirits before his face. The Hebrews call these 7 spirits Aluhim, and these are they who in their boundless power created everything that is or was. These spirits of the triune Alyun El, moved on the face of boundless space, and 7 others were, and every other had its form of life. These forms of life were but the thought of Alyun El, clothier in the substance of their ether planes. Men call these ether planes the planes of protoplast, of earth, of plant, of beast, of man, of angel and Garubat. These planes, with all their teeming thought of Alyun El, are never seen by eyes of man in flesh. They are composed of substance far too fine for fleshly eyes to see, and still they constitute the soul of things, and with the eyes of soul all creatures see these ether planes and all the forms of life. Because all forms of life on every plane are thoughts of Alyun El, all creatures think, and every creature is possessed of will, and in its measure has the power to choose. And in their native planes all creatures are supplied with nourishment from the ethers of their planes. And so it was with every living thing, until the will became a sluggish will, and then the ethers of the protoplast, the earth, the plant, the beast, the man, began to vibrate very slow. The ethers became more dense, and all the creatures of these planes were clothed with coarser garbs of flesh, which men call physical, appeared. And this is what is called the fall of man, but man fell not alone. For protoplast and earth and planet and beast were all included in the fall. The angels and the Garubat fell not, their will was never strong, and so they held the ethers of their planes in harmony with Alyun El. Now when the ether reached the rate of atmosphere, and all the creatures of these planes must get their food from atmosphere, the conflict came, and then that which the finite man called survival of the best became a law. The stronger ate the bodies of the weaker manifest, and here is where the carnal of evolution had its rise. In yonder kingdom of the soul this carnal evolution is not known, and the great word of masterminds is to restore the heritage of man, to bring him back to his estate that he had lost when he again will live upon the ethers of his native plane. The thoughts of Alyun El change not. The manifests of life on every plane unfolds into perfection of their kind, and as the thought of Alyun El can never die, there is not death to any being of the seven ethers of the seven spirits of the triune Alyun El. And so earth is never plant, a beast or bird or creeping thing is never man, and man is not and cannot be a beast or bird or creeping thing. The time will come when all these manifests will be absorbed, and man and beast and plant and earth and protoplast, a revelation unto him. Now Vidyapati, wisest of the Indian sages, chief of the temple Kapavistu, heard Bharata speak to Jesus of the origin of man, and heard the answer of the Hebrew prophet, and he said, "You priests of Kapavistu, hear me speak. We stand today upon a crest of time. 6 time ago, a master soul was born who gave a glorious light to man. Now a master, sage, stands in the temple of Kapavistu. The Hebrew prophet is the rising star of wisdom defied. He brings to us a knowledge of the secret things of Alyun El, and all the world will hear his words and glorify his name. You priests of temple Kapavistu, stay, be still and listen when he speaks. He is the living oracle of Alyun El." And all the priests gave thanks and praised the Buddha of enlightenment. Then he travelled into Persia, amongst the Zoroastrians, then to Assyria, amongst the Magi, and then to Egypt. Yashua, with Elihu and Salome in Egypt, tells the story of his journeys. Elihu and Salome praise Alyun El. Yashua goes to the temple in Heliopolis and is received as pupil. And Yashua came to Egypt land, and all was well. He tarried not upon the coast, he went at once to Zoan, home of Elihu and Salome, who 25 years before had taught his mother in their sacred school. And there was joy when he met these, when last the son of Mary saw these sacred groves. He was a babe. And now a man grown strong by buffeting of every kind, a teacher who had stirred the multitudes in many lands. And Yashua told the aged teachers all about his life, about his journey, sings in foreign lands, about his meetings with the masters and his kind receptions by the multitudes. Elihu and Salome heard his story with delight. Magdalene, at age 29, he and his wife left to go study at the mystical schools in the Jordan amongst the Essenes, also to visit his cousin Johanna, spending time there teaching and learning and presenting his new wife Mary of Magdalene, whom he married in the year 28 AD in Cana. Essenes considered him too opinionated, and he was temporarily outcast from the order. At age 29, while in the Jordan, he got his mikwah, or baptism, his shahadat. This is the good news about Yashua HaMashiach, the Ibn Alyun El. It began as the prophet Isaiah, known in tone as Yeshayahu, and in rhythm, Ishaya. Alyun El said, "I will send my messenger ahead of you to clear the way for you." Someone is shouting in the Dessen, "He is a noble son of the Dessen, and has drunk from the well. Get the road ready for the Rabboni, make a straight path for him to travel." So you, Johanna, appeared in the Dessen, giving shahadats and tablik, that is, giving dawah to the masses. "Turn away from your sins and get your shahadat," he told the people, "and Alyun El will forgive your sins." Many people from the province of Judea and the city of Jerusalem went out to hear Johanna. They confessed their sins, and he baptized them in the river Jordan. Johanna's clothes were made of camel's hair with a leather belt around his waist, and his food was locust and wild honey. He announced to the people, "The man who will come after me is much greater than I am. I am not good enough even to bend down and untie his sandals. I baptized you with water, but he will baptize you with the Holy Soul." Not long after, Yashua came from Nazareth in the province of Galilee and was baptized by Johanna in the Jordan. As soon as Yashua came up out of the water, he saw the skies open and a craft coming down on him, flying like a dove. And a voice came from the sky and said, "You are my Walud son. I am pleased with you." At once, this spiritual craft ordered him to go into the desert, where he stayed 40 days, being tempted of Nakash. During that period, John was arrested and imprisoned. While John the Baptist was imprisoned, he was visited by an agent of the Judahites who worked for the Romans. This secret agent's name was Judas Iscariot, son of Simon. He asked John to give him a complete profile on this stranger. John's reply was, "Who asked?" Judas said, "I seek to follow him." John then replied, "Follow who?" He said, "The real Messiah." John knew that there was a deception in his voice and his eyes. So he answered, "I am not sure if this one before us is the real Messiah. I will send an inquirer." Because John had heard, while in prison, the great works of Yashua. Judas pretending that he did not know that Yashua and John were first cousins. So as a means of a warning, John sent 2 of his disciples, Jonas and Elias, both relatives by birth, and they were to ask Yashua this question, "Art you he that should come, or do we look for another?" Yashua answered and said unto them, "Go and show John again those things which ye do hear and see. The blind received their sight, and the lame walked, and the lepers are cleaned, and the deaf hear, and the dead are raised up, and the poor have the gospel preached to them. And blessed is he whosoever shall not be offended in me." And as the 2 turned to walk away, Yeshua began to say unto the multitudes concerning John, "What went ye out into the wilderness to see? A reed shaking with the wind? But what went ye out for to see? A man clothed in soft white raiment? Are in kings' houses, but what went ye out for to see? A prophet? Yea, I say unto you, and more than a prophet. For this is he of whom it is written, Behold, I send my messenger before your face, which shall prepare the way before you. Verily I say unto you, amongst them that are born of women there has not risen a greater than John the Baptist. Notwithstanding he that is least in the kingdom of heaven is greater than he. And from the days of John the Baptist until now the kingdom of heaven suffered violence, and the violent took it by force. For all the prophets and the law prophesied until John. And if ye will receive it, this is Elijah, which was to come. He that hath ears to hear, let him hear. And Jonas and Elias knew what Yeshua meant, and returned to John with the message. And John knew that this was indeed a Messiah, and Yeshua knew that his life from this point on would be in danger. And Judas knew that he must betray Yeshua from this point on. The priest at that time was Zachariah, the husband of Elizabeth. Herod the Great sent for Zachariah to appear before his throne to be questioned as to the whereabouts of this child. Herod the Great was under the impression that Zachariah's son, Johanna al-Mikwa, was the child the wise men were looking for. Herod the Great slew Zachariah because he refused to reveal the whereabouts of his son. Because he did not know, he was struck dead on the spot. Members of the Essene Brotherhood rescued Johanna al-Mikwa and his mother Elizabeth and brought them to Zoan. Elizabeth and Johanna al-Mikwa, they lifted up their eyes to heaven and said, Our Father, the Most High, let now your servants go in peace. For we have seen the glory of Alyon El, and we have talked with him, the messenger of love, and of the covenant of peace on earth, goodwill toward men. Through him shall all the nations of the earth be blessed through him. Emmanuel, another name that Yeshua was called, a son of Isaiah. And Jesus stayed in Zoan many days, and then went forth into the city of the sun, that men called Heliopolis, and sought admission to the temple of the sacred, the ancient mystic order of Melchizedek. The council of the ancient mystic order of Melchizedek convened, and Yashua stood before the Hierophant and exclaimed, Rabboni of the rabbinate, why seek for wisdom in the hall of learning? I would sit. The heights that any man has gained, these I would gain the greaves. The disappointments and the sore temptations of what any man has suffered I would meet, that I may know, brother man, that I may know just how to succor those in need. I pray you, brothers, let me go into your dismal crypts, and I would pass the hardest of your tests. The master said, Take then the vow of secret brotherhood. And Yeshua took the vow of secret to the ancient and mystic order of Melchizedek. Again the master spoke, he said, The highest heights are gained by those who reach the greatest depths, and you shall read the greatest depths. The guide then led the way, and in the fountain Yeshua bathed. And when he had been clothed in the proper garb, he stood again before the Hierophant. Then he moved on into Persepolis, Iran, then stopped at the great spiritual center. He headed toward Assyria, into Damascus, Iraq, on into Galilee, where he went to visit his mother Mary. In each of these places he spent his time studying, covering the period of about 5 years, healing and teaching, and also learning. Age 26, he involved himself with radical groups who spoke out against the Pharisees, calling them vipers and the likes. At age 27, Mary, his mother, feared for his involvement. At age 28, he married and impregnated his wife Mary, resided with a relative in the Engedi Hills. When Yohanna al-Mikwa was 9 years old, his education was undertaken by Matheno, an Egyptian Israelite who was a master from the temple of Saqqara, under the instruction of Zosa, the master healer. Elizabeth died when Yohanna al-Mikwa was 12 years old, so Matheno took him to Zoan, where he remained until he was 30 years old. Yohanna al-Mikwa spent half of his life with the Essenes and the other half by himself in the wilderness. Yohanna al-Mikwa remained in the Bedouin lifestyle because all his life he believed the Romans were out to kill him. He was known as a very powerful and spiritual man who foreran and prepared the way for Yashua. He spoke of one who would come after him. Yohanna al-Mikwa would have been in Israel doing his job if he had not been a threat to Herod the Great and his people. He baptized Yashua and passed everything over to him. Yohanna al-Mikwa met his death at the request of Herodias, Herod Antipas' wife. She instructed her daughter to request the head of Yohanna al-Mikwa at the birthday of Herod Antipas. Herod Antipas was the son of Herod the Great. He married his half-brother's wife, Herodias, an act which was condemned by Yohanna al-Mikwa. Herod Antipas didn't have Yohanna al-Mikwa killed because he attracted a very large following, and his death would have stirred the anger of the people. However, when it was Herod's birthday, his daughter Salome, the daughter of Herodias, danced for him. The style of dance she performed was very seductive, and it pleased Herod, and he promised her anything she wished for. Herodias saw this as her chance to seek revenge on Yohanna al-Mikwa for publicly condemning her marriage, and instructed her daughter Salome to ask for the head of Yohanna al-Mikwa on a charger, a platter. Yashua returned from the Jordan River full of the Holy Soul, and was led by the spiritual crafts into the deserts, being a son of the desert, where he was tempted of the devil for 40 days. In all that time he ate nothing, so that he was hungry when it was all over. And the devil said to him, "If you are Walad Alyon El, you would have the power to do all things." So Nakash took him up and showed him the Essene village, the second of all the kingdoms of the world, and said, "I will give you all this power and all this wealth." This is what Nakash told him. "It has all been handed over to me, and I can give it to anyone I chose. All this could be yours if you worship me." Yashua said, "The scripture said, worship Yahuwah of the Elohim, and serve him only." Lo, the herald or harbinger had paved the way. The Kalimat had been introduced to Enosites as love made manifest, and he must now begin his divine ministry. And he went forth into the wilderness to be alone with Alyon El, that he might look into his inner heart, and not its strength and worthiness. And with himself he talked. He said, "My lower self is strong. By many ties I am bound down to carnal life. Have I the strength to overcome and give my life a willing sacrifice for Enosites? When I shall stand before the face of Enosites, and they demand a proof of my messiahship, what will I say?" And then he, the tempter, came and said, "If you be the Walad of Alyon El, command these stones to turn to bread." And Yashua said, "Who is it that demands a test? It is no signs that one is an Ibn of Alyon El because he does a miracle. The devils can do mighty signs. Did not the Goyi, Gentile magicians, do great things before the Pharaoh? My words and deeds in all the walks of life shall be the proof of my messiahship." And then the tempter said, "If you will go into Jerusalem, and from the temple pinnacle cast down yourself to earth, the people will have faith that you are the Messiah sent from the Most High, Alyon El. This you can surely do. For did not David son of Jesse say, 'He gives his Elohim charge concerning you, and with their hands will they uphold, lest you shall fall.'" And Yeshua said, "I will not tempt the Yahuwah of the Elohim." And then the tempter said, "Look forth upon the world. Behold its honor and its fame. Behold its pleasure and its wealth. If you will give your life to these, they shall be yours." But Yeshua said, "Away from me all tempting thoughts. My heart is fixed. I spurn this carnal self with all its vain ambition and its pride." For 40 days did Yeshua wrestle with his carnal self. His higher self prevailed. He then was hungry, but his best friends had found him, and they ministered to him. Then Yeshua left the wilderness, and in the consciousness of holy breath, he came into the camps of Yohanna and taught.